introduction there, no? Good morning, everybody. We are on the 10th lesson of the Indian Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons biological course. Today, we will be discussing a very, very important topic, that of the small bones, bones below the wrist. Now, hand is something which we keep looking every day, and even the slightest deformity reminds us of some mishap in treatment, which we will always associate with the surgeon or physician who has treated it primarily, and we always blame the person if something goes wrong. Hand injuries look trivial, but are very, very serious, both practically and psychologically. I have seen marriage of a young girl getting cancelled because of a malunited fracture in the index finger, and they said that she is a handicapped person. Of all the treatments in fractures, the one that requires experience and expertise is hand injuries. Though this is a biological course, meaning so far we have been discussing only modalities like plaster application, for hand, we cannot treat all conditions with plasters alone, and we may need other minimally invasive methodologies like K-wires. K-wires on their own seldom provide stability, and Joshi's external stabilization system uses tiny clamps to lock these K-wires. As per my knowledge, most of the participants of this course are not familiar with JES. So today, Dr. Maratha has a long talk, close to 1.5 hours talk, which will focus on two things: non-operative management of these fractures and minimally invasive management using JES. I will invite Dr. Maratha to the screen. 1 minute, I'm just calling him. Spotlight for everyone. Spotlight for everyone. Remove all pinned videos. Yes, Dr. Maratha,
Yes,
can you
good
continue?
morning. Good morning, everybody. I wish a very happy Dashera today morning, because as such this Dashera we always worship, as we worship our books and all the instruments. So I have the opportunity to explain such a beautiful system this morning to all the participants that has proved a boon in difficult situations. Today morning, we will be discussing the fractures of the small tubular bones of the hand along with the acute hand trauma. How beautifully a system addresses these two injuries. Injuries of the hand and wrist account for 15% of the accidental injuries. So the incidence is high because hand outreaches for all our works, and the industrial workers and the agriculture workers, they get the hand injuries so often. And with the mobile accidents, we find more incidents of hand trauma these days. Too often these fractures are treated as minor injuries and major disabilities result. Dr. Prakash just now told that these injuries should not be treated as the minor injuries, because the hand is a small organ fitted to the upper extremity, but the most important part which outreaches and does all the work. That's why even the smallest deformity and the functional disability will remind the patient lifelong. And that's why the reputation of surgeon may stand as much in jeopardy from a fracture of the phalanx as from any fracture of the femur. It is not only the bigger bones which give disrepute if they go into malunion. Rather, the malunion of a small phalanx can also give disrepute to the orthopedic surgeon. That's why there is the importance of treating these fractures biologically as well. There should not be any functional disability. What is required is assess each injury, how it occurred, when it occurred, and where it occurred. The history taking is very, very important. How the patient got the injury, whether he had a fall on the outstretched hand, then in your mind, if your mind knows all the injuries, the bony injuries which can occur on the outstretched hand come to your mind, and you will examine the patient from the fingers up to the shoulder joint. That's why the detailed examination and along with that, neurovascular status should be examined. If there is some injury to the carpal bones and you find there is the injury by fall on the outstretched hand and there is just the swelling on the wrist, and on X-ray examination, you find there is nothing abnormal detected in first examination. But because there is a swelling and there is tingling and numbness in the hand, you always suspect there may be something associated with it. And you get the repeat X-rays in different views and you will find there is something abnormal with the carpal bones. So you will not miss the diagnosis. Along with that, you must assess the injury to the skin and the joints, tendons, and all the soft tissues of the hand. Along with that, you must take the history of occupation and the hand dominance and also the socio-economic status of the patient, because you have to plan the treatment for that patient. Friends, in this lesson, I will be more focusing on the principles of treatment rather than on the methods. Because Dr. Joshi used to say, if you learn methods only, you get stuck with those methods. But if you learn principles, you can devise your own methods. That's why it is very important that you must learn the principles, and the principles remain the same. Even in the Vedic period, the same principles were laid, and our ancient this medicine used to follow those principles and treat the patients. And even today, if we forget those principles, we will err. Regarding the fracture treatment of the small bones of the hand, the same principles are here. You have to reduce the fracture near to the anatomical position most of the time, because the bone is very small and you cannot accept the malunion. And after the reduction, sometimes you accept even the functional reduction of the bone, not the anatomical. But what is more important, to hold that in the reduced position, and when you hold, you always assess whether there is a joint congruity, metaphyseal reconstruction, and a stable fixation is there. The reduction is achieved and it is holding in the post-reduction period. That is very important. And along with that, in hand, you have to give the functional results here. That is very, very important. That's why the early movement of the fingers should be allowed. So the functional treatment is required rather than the rigid treatment in hand trauma. And the rehabilitation should start from day one. So along with the treatment, the rehabilitation of the fingers should start. Most of the small bone fractures are stable before and after close reduction and give good results with splints and early mobilization. But the difficulty is with the unstable fractures or displaced fractures and which are unstable. There what is required to hold the fractures in the reduced position. This body splint, stable fractures can be treated non-operatively with splintage for a short period, usually a few days, followed by supervised active mobilization exercise and regular radiological reassessment. The follow-up is very, very important. It is not just give the treatment to immobilize the finger and the patient comes after 1 month or 4 weeks, because more than 2 to 3 weeks of immobilization is not recommended, because there are the chances of stiffness in the MP and IP joints. The philosophy of management is a successful method of fixation should change fractures from unstable to stable. What is required is first the reduction of the fracture, and then this reduction should stay. And all those unstable fractures, if you have reduced those fractures, they can displace. So you have to hold in the stable position, reduced position, the unstable fractures. Operative fixations are reserved for the selected unstable fractures. Only in 5% of the cases, internal fixation by plates or by other methods may be required, and that too only in very unstable and widely displaced fractures. The aim of treatment is reduction and stabilization of fracture till it heals. It is the aim of our treatment, and in that, prevent any chance of loss of reduction. Allow early mobilization. That is very important to avoid the stiffness. Minimal, and all these procedures should be minimally invasive. This course deals with the biological methods of treatment. Biological treatment doesn't mean that you will never put anything inside the bone. Biology means you respect the biology of the limb, of the organ you are treating, the bones as well the soft tissues. That's why it should not be too much aggressive treatment. The rigid treatment should be avoided, and it should be minimally invasive. Hand must be mobilized early if normal function is to be maintained. This is known since ages that the fingers should not be mobilized for more than 3 weeks time. Otherwise, they will become stiff. You may achieve anatomical reduction with the rigid fixation, but the hand may be useless, stiff, rigid, and non-functioning hand. What we see today with the more aggressive surgeons, they are doing too much of internal fixations for the small tubular bones with the plates, and we find more complications. Small bones of the hand, like the clavicle, will nearly always unite. That's why non-union is rarely seen. Rather, malunion is more common. And the rigid hands, non-functioning hands are come across in my practice. They will unite despite the movement. That is the ergonomic treatment of the fractures. And functional deformity is preferable to stiff non-functional joints. This is very, very important. Fracture treatment and rehabilitation are done simultaneously to achieve maximum functional recovery. So the rehabilitation should start from day one. If you have immobilized one finger, the other finger should be mobilized. Even the elbow and shoulder should be encouraged to do all the mobilization from day one. Otherwise, there is the injury to the hand, and the shoulder comes, the patient comes with the hand-shoulder syndrome. What is ultimate objective? The ultimate objective in hand injuries is to have pain-free, that is very important, stable and mobile hand, functioning hand. Hand fractures can be complicated by deformity from no treatment. If you don't treat these patients, you leave them as such, the patient may have some deformity, but that may be functional deformity. If you overtreat these patients, you immobilize the hand for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. What we find at the end, the bone is united, but the hand is stiff. But if you do poor treatment, like internal fixation in each and every case of phalanges, small bones fractures of the hand, what you find, that deformity with stiffness, both come together. Just see this patient. This is a third metacarpal comminuted fracture. If you leave this fracture as such, there may be some deformity, shortening of the middle finger, but the functional, you will have the functional hand. But what the enthusiastic surgeon has done, he has put the mini plate with multiple screws, having the anatomical reduction, achieving the length of the metacarpal, but that is also not completely achieved, and it was a very rigid, non-functioning hand. Another case of proximal phalanx fracture, again treated by plating. This was stiff. Not only the stiff finger, but the whole hand was stiff and non-functioning. So what are the treatment options? You may be thinking that if you have not to put the internal fixation, what should be there? Your treatment should be very judicious, and it should be based on the principles of treatment for the hand injuries. You should be very conservative, and the ergonomic treatment may be recommended in few of the fractures. I rarely use plaster application for immobilizing the hand fractures. Your treatment should be minimally invasive. And I think I never go with the plates, since I learned the technique of Jess for treating all the difficult fractures of the hand. Jess is really a boon for difficult fractures of the small bones of the hand. Selection of appropriate treatment depends upon location and geometry of the fracture, open or closed, stability of the fracture, surgeon's familiar method, and patient's compliance and socioeconomic status. These are the criteria on which your treatment should depend. I cannot go with all the conservative treatment which have been advocated for stable type of fractures of the hand, or to convert them from stable to unstable by the conservative methods. But I can give you few principles on which you can base your treatments. All the fingertip fractures, that is the tough injuries, no splintage is required. If there is the fracture of the distal phalanx, tough fracture, no immobilization is required. Because if you immobilize that finger with any method for more than 2 to 3 weeks, there may be stiffness of the IP as well the MP joints. In children, pediatric age group, epiphyseal fractures, if they are displaced, you reduce them and just put some splintage. No internal fixation is justified. There is more chances that you will damage the epiphysis, and later on there may be the deformities of the fingers. So in epiphyseal fractures, as is with the other bones, it is not true with the small bones. Don't go for the even the K-wire fixations in pediatric age group. They are usually stable once you have reduced them. And within 10 days, 1 week to 2 weeks, they become sticky. Oblique fractures are unstable. That's why stabilization is needed in oblique fractures. Comparatively, the transverse fractures, they are more stable. Remodeling occurs minimum at distal phalangeal fractures. The region from the neck of the metacarpal to the middle phalanx neck, these are more prone to the deformities. That's why always take care of this no man's zone for the bony injuries of the small bones of the hand. Always immobilize them not more than 2 to 3 weeks. In stable fracture, 2 to 3 weeks immobilization by finger strapping. This is very, very common, what we have been doing since our post-graduation days. But those days, what was there was the ball bandage. I never apply the ball bandage now because there are the more chances the patient may be lost for more than 3 weeks. He may come after 2 to 3 weeks, and by that time, other fingers also become stiff. So the finger stepping is more recommended, and these thermoplastic splints, they are really a boon in my practice for the correction of the deformities and for the immobilization of the small bones of the hand. These thermoplastic sheets I always keep in my OPD, and I always make the different type of splints to immobilize the finger fractures. And then the malleable padded aluminum splint, which has been advocated all over the world. But what I found that the thermoplastic splints are much better than the aluminum splint. Any fracture which needs reduction also needs retention. Always keep in your mind that once you have reduced the fracture, if it was widely displaced, there are more chances that it can get redisplacement. That's why the retention is needed in those displaced fractures. In proximal phalanx fractures, flexion of the MP joint reduces the deformity. So you can keep the MP joint in 70 degrees of flexion, but all the IP joints not more than 20 to 30 degrees of flexion should be immobilized. Then comes the rotational deformity is not accepted in small because as such in long bones up to 10 degrees of rotational deformity you can accept in tibia 5 to 10 degrees. But in small bones of the hand, no rotation deformities, otherwise there will be the deformity and the patient will always be looking, as Dr. Prakash told, his hand always coming to his face and always blaming you that there has been the maltreatment. In practice, fingers treated by internal fixation are stiffer than treated non-operatively. In the hands of the hand surgeons who are dedicated, you can have good results of internal fixation. But there also, they have to do the internal fixation very judiciously. But for a general orthopedic surgeon, I think it is not the cup of tea for all the orthopedic surgeons to go for the plating. It is easy to put a small mini plate, but the chances of stiff fingers are much, much more. And ultimately, you will end up with a non-functioning hand. No immobilization for more than 3 weeks. Time and again, I am repeating this because once you get the post-treatment X-rays, you do not find the soft callus because soft callus appears very late in small bones of the hand. That's why you should not immobilize more than 2 to 3 weeks. Then coming individually on few of the bones which are common, the carpal bone fractures and dislocation. The wrist injury. Fractures of the scaphoid seldom unite. Untreated fractures, undetected in routine skygrams may manifest with non-union in coming months. This is very, very important. Rather than the treatment, the patient comes to you. I have found that with the busy senior orthopedic surgeons, even they can miss sometime the fracture of the scaphoid. Either the patient is not giving too much of the importance to the pain to the wrist joint, and or the surgeon has not examined and taken the history properly, and you can miss the diagnosis and patient takes it as a sprain of the wrist and presents after 6 weeks, 4 weeks, when the gap non-union has started. Swelling and tenderness in the anatomical snuff box after trauma should be treated. All those patients with this finding should be treated as fracture scaphoid unless proved otherwise. If you find there is the tenderness in the anatomical snuff box in the first examination in the OPD, you do not find any other sign, still you should immobilize those wrists with the scaphoid cast for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, again get the X-ray and revise your diagnosis. The treatment protocol, as summarized by Dr. L. Prakash in his book on the biological treatment of fractures, I have just put all those points. The immobilization cast below elbow with thumb incorporation lead to union in 6 to 12 weeks time in 90% of the scaphoid fracture. So most of the non-union of the scaphoid, they come because of the wrong treatment or negligence on the part of the patient or of the surgeon who has not examined the patient properly and not advised the immobilization initially. Because if the 6 weeks are lost, there are more chances of delayed union and non-union in those patients. If ununited at 12 weeks and you find there is minimal callus or no callus at 12 weeks, but there is no symptom also and no sign, there is no tenderness in the anatomical snuff box, you can leave it as such and ask the patient to do the guided movements of the wrist joint and be watchful and ask the patient to come after 2 weeks for the re-examination of the wrist. If you find that non-union at 12 weeks time painful, then you have 2 options, either to go for the immobilization further for 6 weeks to 12 weeks time, or go for invasive procedures like bone grafting and fixation or proximal carpecting. But this should be done only, I think, after 3 months time, and when you have given already the conservative treatment. And rather, in my practice, I always tell my patient to ignore it for few more weeks so that we may assess that whether the fibrous union can help and make the patient symptom free. Another point the most important is not to neglect this injury around the wrist joint. Always examine the patient properly. Second point, which is also very important, not to have the loose cast. You apply one cast and it is on the swelling of the wrist. It becomes loose. Patient doesn't turn up. He turns up after 6 weeks because initially you told that the cast will remain for 6 weeks, but you do not ask the patient to come for the follow-up after 2 weeks for the reassessment. So those cases also land up into delayed union and non-union. Another point which has to be emphasized, whether the thumb should be incorporated or not. In my practice, I always incorporate the thumb up to the IP joint. Rather, in few of my patients, I sometimes even incorporate the IP joint, but most of the time, only the proximal phalanx is immobilized. And the wrist should be in the nearly 15 to 20 degrees of dorsiflexion and radial flexion. It should be rather in the glass holding position. This is very important because patient can do his small works with that position, and that rather reduces the fracture more when you put it into dorsiflexion and radial flexion. I always give 2 to 3 casts. First cast for 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and then I always change the cast after 2 to 3 weeks. Right. Another common fracture, that is the base of the first metacarpal, it is extra-articular fracture. If it is stable type, you can just reduce this fracture by the close method and give the immobilization by the cast treatment, just like scaphoid. Then comes the interarticular fracture. These are really troublesome because usually they are unstable type of injuries. And once you have reduced, you get the check X-ray, very fantastic reduction you have achieved. And you just give the immobilization by the cast. As the swelling subsides, because it is unstable, it redisplaces. And there will be the deformity and the functional deformity of the thumb later on. That's why these fractures, they need retention of the reduced position by some internal fixation, like the fixation by the K-wire or the JES. This is our method of which is employed to make the unstable fracture into the stable one with a distractor. Rather, we use the distractor more when the patient presents late, because initially he has been treated by some surgeon by the cast treatment, and it redisplaces, and the patient comes after 3 weeks, 4 weeks. In those patients, we have to reduce the fracture again, and we use the distractor along with this JES fixation system. This is how we can immobilize these fractures with the JES frame. Another injury which is also most of the time missed in the initial examination, that is perilunate fracture dislocations. There are many combinations of carpal bones injuries, but lunate dislocation is more common, and the perilunar dislocation. There is so many combinations of carpal bone injuries. These injuries are often missed by the inexperienced and left untreated, and cause great anguish to the patient and disrepute to the surgeon. Transcaphoid, perilunar dislocation, and lunate and half scaphoid dislocation. The lunate and the proximal fragment of the scaphoid bone is remaining in its anatomical position, but whole of the carpal bones going dorsally. And in another patient, there can be the scaphoid and the half of the lunate, they are dislocated. This transcaphoid and perilunar dislocation and the carpal bones injuries are beautifully explained by Dr. L. Prakash in his biological book on the fracture management. I have gone just through it in last 2-3 days, and I found all those textbooks which are just dealing with the wrist joint injuries, you cannot understand this injury, but beautifully Dr. L. Prakash has explained in a very simple way that how to diagnose these injuries and how to reduce them when the patient comes to you. This is how, with simple traction and just putting the lunate bone back to its womb by pressure on the lunate bone by the thumb, we can achieve the reduction. It is hardly 2 minutes job and patient is happy. If you miss this diagnosis, all the disrepute comes to you on your head. This is how it can be reduced. The lunate was dislocated and it has been put back to its womb by closed method. I will not go in details of this. Carpal bones injuries. Rather, I just now come to my main topic, which is again the extension of the conservative treatment. I always call that what is JES? I think most of the participants, they must have either using this system or must have heard about it. What is JES? JES is very much biological because it respects the biology of not only the bone, but all the soft tissues. The bone is like a plant whose roots lie in the soft tissues. You have to respect the soft tissues equally. Otherwise, you will have all the complications. Nurturing its needs skills more akin to those of a gardener than those of a cabinet maker. We are not carpenters, we are gardeners. We have to respect the soft tissues. Dr. B.B. Joshi, who has been a legendary figure in world orthopedics, he has innovated many techniques of hand trauma management, reconstructive surgery, and his last days after the retirement, he has gifted us with this beautiful system of Joshi's external stabilization system. These are the few components of JES. What is required? It is the simplest method by which we can make all of our unstable fractures into stable one. I always say that it is not a fixation system, rather it is a stabilizing system. Elizaro is a fixator, but JES is a stabilizing system. What is required here? Only few K-wires, link joints, and the connecting rods to start with. Then comes other components like the hinges and the distractors. But any beginner with few link joints, K-wires, which are always with us, and the connecting rod can start stabilizing the fractures and convert them from unstable to stable one. These are the link joints which are in different configurations of and the sizes, and the connecting rods and the hinges and the distractors. I will not go in detail because time do not permit me for all the components discussion, but I have just given a bird's eye view on this. Then what are the indications? I just told that we have to make the unstable fracture into stable one. That's why the spiral and the oblique fractures, they are unstable, and there we need some intervention. Displaced intra-articular fractures, again, they cannot forgive you if there is some you do not correct the displacement completely. Then the compound fractures, fractures with soft tissue loss, fractures with bone loss, and multiple fractures. All these are the strong indications of using something biological to make the to reduce the fracture that you do by manually by so many methods of reduction, and then to retain that we need some stabilizing system, and that is chess. For any procedure, let it be the least invasive, let it be the reduction, or it can be least invasive JES application or K-wire fixation. What is needed is to make the procedure painless, to win the confidence of the patient, and that is the anesthesia. We cannot go for general anesthesia in hand surgery. Rather, we are gifted with the local anesthetics, and the wrist block is really a boon for most of the hand surgeries. We do the median nerve block, ulnar nerve block, superficial nerve block, and the digital blocks. This is a beautiful picture which shows that we have to have the painless dorsal aspect of the hand when we are operating the hand. And for that, to give the local anesthetic radial nerve, to block radial nerve. And this we have to inject between the abductor pollicis longus and the extensor pollicis longus at the level of the styloid process, from where the branches of the superficial radial nerve go to the dorsum of the hand. Then figure shows that how to block the median and ulnar nerve. Always keep in your mind that the median nerve is just radial to the palmaris longus, and the ulnar nerve just radial to the flexor carpi ulnaris. This is how to give the digital block anesthesia. Please learn these block anesthesia when you start your practice. This is very important. You cannot call the anesthetist all the time. And all these minor surgery, even the major surgeries, can be done under the block anesthesia, and 2 to 4 hours time of this painless surgery you can get. That is by using either the xylocaine or the long-acting anesthetic, that is bupivacaine. I usually use the bupivacaine when my surgery is more than 1 hour. Various frames construct. I will just give you the bird's eye view of these frames. These are the simplest frames which any beginner can use. These are the unilateral frames, and what it is implying, only few K-wires, link joint, and the connecting rod. This is distal phalanx fracture for all the injuries of the crush injuries of the distal phalanx, because there is a soft tissue injury. And every time you do the dressing, there is the movement of the fracture site, and it goes into non-union in those cases. So you have to stabilize these fractures. There is the loss of the soft tissue. You have to do the reconstructive procedures. That's why you have to stabilize this fracture with this simple, either this U frame or the L frame. This axial traction frame, which we can employ to give the traction to correct the deformities. Proximal phalanx fractures, they can be made stable by employing either the unilateral frame or the delta frame, which is more stable frame. This is mid-shaft proximal phalanx fracture. This is compound injury. What will you do? You are always afraid if you put some K wire, there are the chances of infection in mutilated finger. In those cases, if you stabilize it with the simple Jess frame, there are less chances of soft tissue trauma as well infection, because you have to do the least invasive procedure. Already the soft tissues have suffered. There is jeopardized the vascularity of the finger. You are doubtful whether it will survive or not. That's why you have to use the simplest and least invasive procedures. This is unilateral frame. This is a simple frame which can convert your unstable fracture into stable one after the reduction. And the beauty of it is you mobilize the IP joints from day one. All the fingers are free. This is how the comminuted fracture has been stabilized with a simple unilateral frame. All the compound injuries, they do not have any other option. Rather, this simplest frame can be a boon in those cases. Highly unstable fractures, they can be made stable using two connecting rods unilaterally. If you do not, you have to immobilize either the fifth metacarpal. There, again, you cannot use the bilateral frame. Double connecting rod, it makes a better construct in unstable injuries. This is the bilateral frame, but there is always a difficulty when you have to use this for the second, third, fourth, fifth metacarpal or all the figures which are placed medially. This can be used for thumb because there is the space for bilateral frame. Then in those cases, where you do not have the fragment is small, either proximally or distally, we can use this J frame. This is how we can apply this even in the comminuted fracture of the condyles of the metacarpal. Once you have reduced it, just put this simple frame and make this stable frame by using the J frame. This is how to make the delta frame. The K wires are introduced diagonally. This is how we make the delta frame. And there are so many modified frames. Once you learn the simplest frame, you become familiar with the link joints and the components of the Jess. You can always learn how to make the frame yourself. But all stabilization should be biomechanically stable, and you must learn the principles of respecting the soft tissues. This is very, very important. You should not impale the neurovascular structures. Always keep in your mind the surface anatomy where you are working. This is construction of the positional frame for crush injuries of the hand. This is the simplest positional frame to keep the wrist in dorsiflexion and immobilize it in that particular position. This is positional hand, how to make it and have the extension for the hand. And with it, we can always give the thimble traction for the digits. This is the functional positioning of the phalanges with this frame. Then comes the segmental fixation. Segmental fixation helps to solve all aspects of fracture treatment and by early mobilization. It prevents the stiffness because you not cross the joint. It is not the joint spanning fixator. You are not immobilizing the adjoining joints. That's why the segmental fixation may be unilateral, bilateral, or J frame. It is better. It prevents the stiffness, safe positioning of the hand you can achieve with it, and helps achieve maximum range of motion of the neighboring joints. This is how a J frame has been employed, and the patient has started doing his work as well the writing by using the J frame. So this is the beauty of this. You do not immobilize the neighboring fingers and the neighboring joints, and the patient is back to his work earliest possible, making the unstable fracture a stable one. This is the compound injury of the little finger. The bone was coming out of the wound. It was being reduced after thorough cleaning and the debridement. Always follow the principles of management of open injuries, of washing, debridement, and then the reduction of the wound. Never hasten up to reduce the fracture once you see that it is coming out. Always do thorough washing and the debridement, and then reduce the fracture. Otherwise, the chances of infection will be much more. All the contamination goes inside. This is how it was displaced. In the same patient, we assess the injury. We just see that there is a small wound on the volar aspect of the little finger. But when we get the X-ray, it is a widely displaced fracture. This is how beautifully, anatomically, this fracture is being reduced and made stable with a unilateral frame. So the proximal phalangeal fractures, they can be managed, and you just see the results. What is important is the function of the hand. There should not be any stiffness. You may do any reimplantation surgery. You may do anything, any heroic surgery. But if your hand is non-functioning, rigid, stiff fingers, then it is useless. So always respect the soft tissues. Always mobilize the joint earliest possible. Another case of compound injury of the proximal phalanx. This is how it has been managed with the unilateral frame with double connecting rod. Just this patient came to me only last fortnight, and I just applied this unilateral frame. Cognitive fracture, nearly anatomical reduction, and segmental frame has been applied. And I started the movements and taking care of the wound as well. Another patient which presented after 3 weeks, a child of 12 years, neglected fracture, being treated by Samjarla. What I did with it was initially compound fracture. That's why I was afraid that it may going to become infected. With minimal opening, I did the osteoclasis and reduced this fracture. How beautifully, anatomically, I was able to do percutaneous reduction of the fragment, because it is in the pediatric age group, and it was late presentation, it was unstable fracture. That's why what was needed was to retain this reduced position. So it was done with this beautiful J frame. The epiphyses have not been impaired. And that's why I say that if you have to use some invasive procedure, go for the JES frame rather than putting the K wire through the epiphysis even in children. And just see the post-operative picture with minimal opening. I could reduce it, and patient was using his hand after 3 weeks' time. Metacarpal fractures, they can be addressed with this simple frames. All the extra-articular fractures with the simple frames, either J-frame or joint sparing fixator. This is metacarpal fractures being managed by these simple frames. I have focused my lecture on simple techniques of using JES in small bones of the hand, because I do not know all the participants how much they are exposed to JES. I was really in dilemma when I started framing my presentation, what to include and what not to include. So I thought what is most important is to put more emphasis on the principles and the basic frames rather than showing them the results of my cases. But at the same time, what is needed that the beginner should have the confidence on that technique. That's why a few clinical pictures are incorporated. So this is how metacarpal, fifth metacarpal can be addressed. There are so many methods of making this fracture stable, because there are always the tendency that the angular deformity will reappear once you have reduced it. So the least invasive procedure, which do not immobilizes the IP joints, is the best. And you can see the results of immobilizing it by this unilateral frame. Complete grip is possible after removal of the frame. If you just give any treatment, you cannot achieve it. Patient back to his skillful job. He was an ophthalmic surgeon. He had a badly crushed hand. And with this technique, he was treated with JES along with other procedures, reconstructive procedures, and he was back to his work. What is more important, you must know about your patient, whether he is a hard-working or he has to use his hand, which is whether it is a left hand or right hand, and what is the job of that patient. For any surgeon, I think it is very important that he should have it. Though it is important for everybody, but for those, the painters, the surgeons, it is very important that they should not have any functional disability. Then comes the articular fracture of the hand. There is a problem of difficulty in stabilization, difficulty in maintaining reduction, high incidence of joint stiffness, and late sequelae of osteoarthritis. What is required is nearly anatomical reduction and stabilization, immobilization in safe position. If, after all, if by any nature's ill will, there is some stiffness, it should be in the functional position. Unload the joint for the cartilage healing. And early guarded mobilization is very important. We cannot achieve it in small bones of the hand, all these things without this chest, because we cannot use the plates, internal fixation in those cases. And what is required is dynamic splintage. And this can be given with the simple chest frame. So not only the stabilization, but even rehabilitation and mobilization can be given to the patient by chest. Another case of bicondylar fracture, very bad fracture. If you would have gone for any mobilization, there are the chances of more stiffness. But these are the functional results so that the participants can have more confidence that full grip is possible even in this comminuted bicondylar fracture with this simple frame. Then comes the mutilated hand. What is there? It is not only the bony injury, but the soft tissue crushing. What is here needed is stabilization in functional position. That is very important. By the time the soft tissues will heal, the joints will become stiff. That's why what is required is to always stabilize the hand in the functional position. I have just shown all those simple frames by which we can achieve stabilization of the badly crushed, mutilated hand, and we can take care of the soft tissues. What is needed is to prevent the pressure in the creases. I remember when I was doing my post-graduation along with Dr. Arvind Divakar, we used to get lot of crush injuries of the hand. Luckily, now the agriculture has become safe and also the industries. That's why comparatively automobile accidents, they give more crushing to the hand rather than the agriculture and the industries. But those days we used to get lot of patients of crush injury of the hand, and in the emergency OPD, OOT, what we used to do, just do the debridement, washing, and give a slab. We could not put the hand in the functional position. And by the time, after 3 to 6 weeks, the soft tissues used to come in shape and heal. All the joints were stiff. Hand was rigid, stiff hand, and we cannot do anything. That's why I think this just is a boon for mutilated hands. Dr. Joshi used to work in an ESI hospital. Those days, lot of industrial trauma used to come to his hospital. He had always the difficulty in managing those patients. The mini external fixator was not available in India, and whatever was available abroad was out of reach for the Indians. It was too costly. I think before the JAS, the mini external fixators were not available in India. And we had no choice but to immobilize these crush injuries of the hand in non-functional positions, do the dressings, the painful dressings daily, because whenever the dressing was removed for the inspection of the wound and for the dressing, and there was a lot of pain to the patient. Patient used to cry of pain and were afraid to go for the dressing. But when this simple JAS positional hand frame was given by Dr. Joshi to the world. Now we have painless dressings, keeping the hand in the functional position. And by the time the soft tissues heal, we do not have the stiff hand in the non-functioning position. It maintains clear space between the fingers, allows painless dressing, allows revitalization of tissues. What we can do always the distraction also by this simple frame. The key goals during the surgery for crush injuries of the mutilated hands, I need not to say again that we have to do lot of washing. All the contaminants have to be removed. Restoring the vascularity is very important. At least do not do now any harm to the soft tissues. What is usually done in the emergency OT, that the first year, second year residents, they do come and they try their hand. They think that the mutilated hand is there and we can do anything with this. We can put any K wire in anywhere, and putting the K wire is very, very difficult in mutilated hands. And with the attempt to put the K wires, there is more damage to the soft tissues and the vascularity. If you just put this crushed hand in the anatomic, this functional position, with the bone stabilized, with the least invasive procedure, there is more chances that the vascularity will be restored. We achieve the hemostasis by this, and no doubt we achieve the bony stabilization. And once we have all this with JESS, we can go for the reconstructive procedures with the JESS in situ. The mutilated injuries, I told that it can be industrial, agriculture, or the accidental. They can be explosive injuries, laceration, crushing, and the burns. Even in burns, we do not have any other option, because you may have the burn injury of the hand along with the fractures. There is only one option, that is external stabilization system. What we need here is proper debridement, functional position, skeletal stabilization, and prevention of infection. Provision of early skin coverage and restoration of movements. I am repeating it for the beginners. But the most important, we all know this, but what is most important is skeletal stabilization. And that is done with a simple JESS positional hand frame. I think it is now outdated to go for POP cast immobilization in these crushed mutilated hands. Internal fixations are always risky. That's why the many external fixators are a boon in mutilated hands. This is the functional position maintained in mutilated hand. How beautifully the MP joints have been put in 60 to 70 degrees of flexion, and the IP joints in 10 degrees of flexion. We can always change the position of the fingers. We can always dynamize the fingers with this frame and do the distraction as well. So this is a stabilizing system. It is a dynamizing system. It is a distractor as well. All the three functions. we can incorporate in a simple frame. Easy management of open wounds with it. Patient doesn't feel the pain. We do have the stabilized bony injuries. There is no redisplacement of the fractures. And now we can go for the reconstructive procedure, the skin grafting, etc., with the frame in situ. This is the badly mutilated hand. What will you think about this hand? Most of the general orthopedic surgeons, they will say that it is better to go for amputation. But what is important is to give some functional unit to the patient so that he can do some work in his life later on. Is it possible without the help of a JAS? No, not at all. Because you have to stabilize the bony, whatever the bones have been left. And along with that, you have to take care of the soft tissues. JAS application for soft tissue and skeletal stabilization. Again, here you can see how beautifully it has been stabilized. And this is the pre and post operative results in the same patient. At least we could give some functional unit to the patient. Any method of treatment has its inherent some complications. And if we take care of few of the and follow the principles of application of that method, there are the least complications. What is important with JAS is to avoid the pin tract infection. Friends, pin tract infection is very, very uncommon with the smooth K wires. And if you follow how to put the K wires properly, because I know many of the orthopedic surgeons I have seen operating, and they do not know how to impale the bones respecting the soft tissues. And that's why the chances of pin tract infection are much, much more common in those cases. Then you blame that this method is not safe. Rather, your methodology is wrong. That's why in Elizaro, those who are practicing Elizaro or external fixation system, and they respect the soft tissues, the chances of complications are least. And the chances of loosening of the frame will be lesser. So what is the most important part of making a JAS, or rather applying a JAS, is to respect the soft tissues. Keep in your mind the surface anatomy. Go through the safe corridors to make a frame. Then the chances of pin tract infection will be least, and the loosening of frame will be least. You always make a stable frame. Always know the geometry of your fracture. Whether it is a stable type, once you have reduced it, it becomes comparatively stable. If it is very unstable because of comminution or because of the oblique, Aditi,
The slide got stuck?
Yeah, I'm not able to get my presentation.
Only last few slides left, no?
Yeah, last few slides are left.
1 minute, you go out of the screen, I'll put my screen and show the things. You just stop sharing screen.
Just a minute.
No, I'm getting it. Don't worry. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Go ahead. I've started it. I'll get you to the last few slides when you're talking. There we are. You have crossed this now. This is the one. Can you see me? Can you see the slides?
I got it. I got it. I
Got
got
it?
it. Okay. So
Can I-
injury to the neurovascular and soft tissue impalement should be avoided. Residual deformity should not be there. And the incongruity of the articular surface should be avoided. Only then we can have a mobile joint. Though non-union is very uncommon, but malunion can always occur if you have your frame becomes loose. This loosening of frame usually it occurs because you do not have a proper hold on the bone. It should be bicortical hold most of the time. Construction of stable hold. You must make a stable frame, stable hold. Proximal and the distal construct should be stable. Either you can use one connecting rod or two connecting rod. You can either have unilateral frame or bilateral frame or the delta frame. And the proper size of the K wires and the connecting rod. This is important. And the pin should be parallel. Regarding the stiffness of joints, mobilize free joints after surgery. The segmental hold is better. Spanning fixator we have to use sometimes, but always mobilize the joint after 3 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks time. Early dynamization and dynamic splints can be incorporated along with the jazz frame. We have a beautiful arthrodiastasis frame for lower end of radius fractures, those fractures which cannot be managed by either internal fixation or plating, etc., because of the too much of combination. In those cases, the ligamento-texas can be achieved with arthrodiastasis frame. Injury to the neurovascular bundle. This is very, very important, as in all major bones, so with the smaller tubular bones as well. Because if you impale the neurovascular structure, there are more chances that the vascularity of the finger will be. Already there is the compromised vascularity of the crushed finger. If you impale the whatever is left, then the chances of gangrene are much more once you have operated these cases. So strict observation of pin placement in safe zones is very important. And the chances of neurovascular bundle are less with the K wires, and these should be removed in optimum time. So what is more important, always keep in your mind the surface anatomy of the finger and head, and only then impale the bone. Go through the safe corridors. My carry home message is, friends, you must start small, but always think big and grow steadily. Start with easy frames, build up to complex configurations. Innovate once you become an expert. So do not start innovating from day one. Please learn the basic principles of any method. And once you have learned them, you can base your methodology on those principles. JESS is an innovative idea of managing difficult intra-articular fractures, unstable fractures of the head, and as well the crushed injuries of the hand. Friends, Dr. Kalam said that innovation is not always at the behest of the West, but even we can dare to roar an innovation. It is high time Indians should believe in Indians. And I am really very happy that Dr. Prakash, Dr. Divakar, and so many of my friends who, in this group of Ortho Global as well, who are in IAOS, they are really very innovative because they have learned the basic principles of respecting the biology of treatment of the tissues and to respect the tissues. That's why they can always innovate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morada.
Thank you.
It is a wonderful, wonderful talk. And almost we have covered 1.5 hours. There were about 14 participants during the main lecture. I am making a recording of this. And not only will it be shared with the people who are paid for the course, but because it's a very informative lecture, which will be of greater use, it shall be shared on other groups also with your permission. Dr. Arvind Divakar has a nice technique of needle olive wires, but we will reserve it for the next class because I'm about to start my orthoplasty class now and others are already waiting for that. Thank you very much. Have a nice Sunday, and we shall send you the link of this lecture soon. Thank you. All the best. Enjoy.
Thank you, Dr. Prakash, and all the participants. Really, this topic is very much near to my heart, and I tried my best to put all whatever I could think that will be beneficial to the beginners. Thank you very much.